What is your strength? This is one of the interview questions that gives so many interview candidates a lot of headache. From wondering what type of strengths to mention to why the interviewer is asking this question. Most job candidates admit that the question of what is your strength or what are your strengths is one of the most difficult interview questions. While this is one of the most asked interview questions, most candidates still struggle and find it hard how to answer this question. So today I'm going to help you, or I'm going to take you through how you can answer this question in the interview. Welcome back to another video, and if you're here for the first time, my name is Nelly, and in this channel I'm all about sharing educative content around career and personal development, just to help you build a rewarding and fulfilling career. So if you want to learn how you can answer this question and stand out in your next interview, then you're in the right place, and for that reason you should stick to this video till the end. So some of the reasons an interviewer would ask you these questions is to test your level of self-awareness. And in testing your level of self-awareness, they want to understand, or they want to know if you understand your strengths. You see, we all have strengths, but I will tell you for a fact, or you'll agree with me, that not all of us knows our strength. So the interviewer is trying to test if you really understand yourself to the level that you can pinpoint something, or you can point out something about you and say, you know what, this is my skill, or this is my strength. So an interviewer is testing your level of self-awareness just to get to understand how deep do you understand yourself, and do you know that you have strength, and do you understand them. The next reason an interviewer will ask this question is to understand whether or not your skills are aligned to this job. While you could be having skills, you could be having strengths, but it is key to understand how these strengths are aligned to this job, because sometimes you can have strengths that are not aligned to the job. Then that means it will really not add value to the employer. The next reason an employer will ask this question is your fit, if the strengths that you have will fit within the organization. So usually organizations understand the current strengths that they have within the current teams. So an employer will ask you this question to understand if you have strengths that will be able to gel in, or rather will be able to fit within what they currently have. Because sometimes you realize that you bring somebody who has a strength that does not allow them to work well with a team. So the employer is looking for that fit. Do you have strength that will allow you to fit within their current team? The next reason an employer will ask you this question is to understand if your strength will be relevant for the organization for now or even for the future. There are those strengths that the employer will be looking for currently, and there are those strengths that an employer will want to have within the organization for their future, either for expansion of the business or for certain reasons that will require those skills to be used in the future. So that's why it is important that the employer gets to understand the strengths that you have. I know you're wondering then, how do you go about answering this question? So if you ask this question, how do you go about it? So the most important thing that you need to begin with is to begin by assessing your skills. Because it is quite important that you understand the skills that you have. After understanding your skills, which I will call doing a skills inventory, just putting a list of the skills that you have, then you proceed and go to the job advert. So from the job advert, you'll be able to know the skills that the employer is looking for. Because in the job advert, if you read through a job advert, there's a point where the job advert will say recommended or required skills. Then they will list a number of skills there. So you really need to look at that part just to understand. So once you understood, you put a list of your skills, you've checked the skills that the employer is looking for from the job advert, then you're able to pick out those skills that you have that the employer is looking for. Then when you ask these questions, what are the skills that you need to focus on? So then once you've picked these skills that that the employer is looking for that are actually in your list of skills, then you need to come and ask yourself, Yes, I have this skill. How have I used this skill previously? Because the most important thing is also being able to mention a skill in the interview and giving examples of how you've used it. So it is the what, which is the skill, then it is the how it has helped you in your current or previous job. Then again, how it will be able to help the employer in helping you to delivering if you're asked, if you're hired for this position. And one of the most important thing, or some of the most important things you need to consider when you're speaking about your skills, you need to be honest. That's why I started by telling you that you need to have a list of the skills that you have, the ones that the employer is looking for, then be able to pick the specific skills that you have if they're in that list. But even if they're not in that list, then you need to pick a specific skill and see how it aligns to your ability, so that when you're in the interview and you ask this question and you mention a skill, you're able to, and you ensure that you mention a skill that you really have. Because why being dishonest could disadvantage you is that if you're picked for this job, if you're hired, you can never hide it for too long. For instance, if you say that you're a good communicator, and if you're hired and you're not able to display this good communication, you shall have really exposed yourself, and the employer will begin wondering, like, did we really hire the right person? Was this person a good fit for our job? And I'm sure you don't want to get to the level where you're trying to expose, like, maybe you're incompetent or you lied in an interview. And also at any point, as I've already said, you also need to ensure that you're mentioning skills that are relevant to the job. So sometimes I see people answering this question while they're saying the skills that they have, which is a good thing, but how is this a skill, or how will this skill be relevant to what the employer is looking for? So you realize when you're giving skills that are not relevant, it really disadvantages you. While it might be well explained, you might give example. So when the employer sits down now, they wonder, how then will this skill be relevant to what I'm looking for? And one of the most important things you should also not forget is that to always back it up with an example. Back it up with examples previously. You see, like, if you say I am a good communicator, you can say, even in my current job, I've used communication to be able to convince, or rather to be able to engage my stakeholders. I currently maybe work as a communication specialist, where my communication skills, I use them or continue to be used, or rather I put them in practice every single day. I am engaging a particular or a specific audience. So before I share with you at least 2 examples of how you could answer this question in a practical interview, let me share with you a list of skills that you can always look out for, or a list of skills that you can always mention if you're asked what is, a list of strengths rather, that you can always use when you're asked what is your strength. So some of the strengths are like being detail oriented, a good communicator, being confident, analytical skills, attention to details, good entrepreneurial skills, flexible, a problem solver. So there's a long list of skills that you can actually use, that you can actually build, so that when you get to the interview and you ask that question, it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like so new, or rather it doesn't sound like something that you've really never ever interacted with. So yeah, so here is the example of how you can answer this question when in a job interview. So you're asked, now tell us, what is your key strength? So answer and say, one of my key strengths is being detail oriented, and I have learned this skill over 9 years in my work as a data analyst. In my work as a data analyst, I deal with a wide range of data, which requires me to be detailed oriented, or to be careful with every detail that I handle. So over the time, being able to focus on each and every detail, I've been able to develop this skill of being detailed oriented. And one of the things that this skill has enabled me in my previous and in my current and previous jobs, to be able to pick out any mistake. And at one point, I remember I was able to pick out a mistake in a data that was presented to me, which would cost the organization millions of money. So you see, you've spoke about how you've been able to develop this skill. You've spoke about how you currently or previously used it in your job as a data analyst. And you've spoke about how this skill of being detailed oriented, like you look at each and every detail, you are able to pick a mistake which could have cost an organization millions and millions of money. Now the second example, when you ask this question, let's take an example of a problem solving as a strength. So you can say, one of my greatest strengths is that I am a problem solver. I look at each and every problem and always think of how I can be, or how I can provide a solution to it. One of the most recent instance is when a customer who was very furious stormed our organization because there was a mistake that had happened in some of their documents. And even though it is not me who had caused this mistake, the customer was not willing to talk to anyone. However, I managed to calm them down, and I provided an instant solution to their problem by ensuring that by the time they're leaving our office, the name had been corrected in that particular document, and they were able to actually just appreciate me and show how much they solved their problem, as they'd been having problems using this document elsewhere. So that's really how you can be able to answer this question. And as you answer this question for the strength, remember always what the employer is looking for is how that strength you have can bring value to their business. So always ensure that you demonstrate value. Always you ensure that you provide a realistic scenario that when you use this as strength, and always ensure that at the end of the day, it's really not about you. It is you selling your skill or your ability, your strength or your ability to someone. And as I always say, that an interview is a competition, and you want to ensure that you do your best in terms of how you answer questions to always stand out in any job interview. So thank you so much for watching this video. We've come to the end, and the next video is on what are your weaknesses. So if you want to learn how to answer what are your weaknesses, which is also a common interview question, then check out on the next video.